All right, ladies and gentlemen, notes 3.2 are on graphing lines. We are going to learn the long way to do it. And then once we figure out how to do it the long way, we are going to find out a nice, easy shortcut that's going to help us find the graphs of our lines without having to do all this extra work. But you have to understand where the shortcut is coming from, so we have to figure out how do we even graph lines to begin with. So let's look at our question number 1 right here. It says to graph the line 4y plus x equals negative 12. So in order to be able to do that, I need to get the y by itself. It's going to make things so much easier for me if I do that. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to isolate the y. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the x. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So when I subtract the x from both sides, I end up getting negative x minus 12 or negative 12 minus x. Remember, it doesn't matter what order you put it in as long as you have the proper signs. Since the x has to be negative and the 12 has to be negative, negative x minus 12 works. So then I'm going to divide both sides by 4, okay? And make sure you divide everything by 4, and you'll end up getting y equals. Now, normally we would take this whole thing and divide it by 4, but I want to know what each individual term is, so I'm going to divide everything by 4. This is going to help me out with this graph right here. So I end up getting negative 1/4 x, because remember there's an invisible 1 right in front of this x, and I can't divide it out evenly, okay? Minus 3. So that's what I'm going to fill in right here. Y equals negative 1/4 x minus 3. I'm going to get that y by itself. I've done that. Now that I've gotten the y by itself, it makes things so much easier for me to be able to graph out my information. In order to graph out my line, I just need to meet a bunch of coordinates. So, for example, right here, if you notice that x is 12, and here you have your x value. So what we did here is we figured out what y would be based on the fact that x is 12. So every time I see an x, I replace it with a 12. So it's negative 1/4 times 12 minus 3. Well, negative 1/4 times 12 is negative 3. So you get negative 3 minus 3, which is negative 6. So your coordinate would be 12, comma, negative 6. I did it for 2 of these examples just to save time, but if you're not sure, please go through and try it and see if you really agree that these are the right answers, okay? Now, the reason why I chose 4, 8, and 12 is because this, I knew, was a fraction where it has to be divisible by 4. You can choose any number you want, but I just chose these numbers only because I want nice even integers. So I'm going to try 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0, and I'm going to try negative 4. Okay, so let's try this out. I get y equals negative 1/4 times negative 4, because I'm replacing the x with a negative 4, minus 3. Okay, so then this ends up being y equals negative 1/4 times negative 4 is positive 1, minus 3, so I end up getting negative 2. So my coordinate is negative 4, negative 2. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing for 0. So y equals negative 1/4 times 0 minus 3. Well, anything times 0 is 0, so I get 0 minus 3, which is negative 3, and then you end up getting 0, negative 3. You should have noticed a pattern, and you should realize that if you don't have a pattern, then something went wrong. Okay? Now that I've gotten all of my coordinates, all I have to do is graph out my points. Okay? So in order to graph out my points, I'm just going to use these coordinates right here. All right. All right, so negative 4, negative 2 means I'm going to go to the left 4 and down 2. And then I'll put a dot there. 0, negative 3 means I'm going to go to nowhere, right or left, and then I'm going to go down 3. Okay? 4, negative 4 means I would go to the right 4 and down 4. Now, if you notice, we ran out of room. And that's okay. That's all right that we ran out of room. Because when we connect the dots, and hopefully you have a straight edge. Unfortunately, I don't have a straight edge that will work on the computer. But I would like you to grab a straight edge, even if it's a piece of paper, and connect the dots. So this right here is going to be my line. Okay? All right, the last thing I need to do is label my line. Now, I'm not going to label it with all the coordinates. I'm just going to label it with the equation. So you can write the original equation if you want, or you can write the isolated equation. See how I wrote the isolated equation? If you want to, you can always write down what the original equation was. So you can put on the line 4y plus x equals negative 12. It's 100% your choice. All right, hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, so if you see on your paper, it says look at the equations that are shown to you, and then it also says write down some observations. Please listen very carefully. I will not be writing down any observations. It is your responsibility to make sure you fill out the observations that you notice. So it will be blank on my screen. It will not be blank on your page. You're going to be responsible for filling out the information. So the first graph that I want you guys to look at is this one right here, y equals 2x plus 3. I'm going to graph it out, and I want you guys to notice some information right here. First of all, I want you to notice right here, here's a point where I know it started right here. So this can be my starting point. If I wanted to find the slope, I would have to do rise over run. So this is going up 2 and over 1, up 2 and over 1. Or I could say it's going up 4 and over 2. So if I were to write this out, I would know that the slope, which is the rise over the run, is 2 over 1, which equals 2. Now if you notice, the equation of this line has a 2 in it. Do you see this 2 times x? So this should make sense to you because the slope is always something per something. So this is 2 y's for every 1 x. So see here, this is 2 for every x. That's what this is saying. 2 for every x, 2 y's for every 1 x. Now the question is, where did the 3 come from? Well, hopefully you noticed right here, the 3 is where it crosses the y-axis at. So the y-intercept, remember we discussed this before, the y-intercept is 3. So now if you guys take a look at the next equation, y equals negative 3x plus 7, you should be able to realize right here what the slope should be. So the slope, remember, is always the number in front of the x. So right here, the slope is x. So I'm going to say m equals negative 3, but it's negative 3 over 1. And then the y-intercept is this positive 7. So that means it should start at 7 right here. So this is where it's going to start. And then it's going to go down 3 because the rise is 3, and to the right 1 because the run is 1. And then down 3 and to the right 1. So let's see if that's really true. So we're going to graph this out. Let's make sure we graph out the right one. So graph our function, it started at 7 and went down 3 to the right 1, down 3 and to the right 1. Okay, some pretty cool stuff. So let's go ahead and look at this one right here. Let's graph that one out. So we're going to graph this function out, and let's see where it crosses the y-axis at. Well, it crosses at negative 5, okay, and then the slope, the rise is down 2 and to the right 3 is the run, so it's negative 2 over 3. So here we can say, since the rise is negative 2 and the run is 3, that our slope is negative 2/3. But we can say the opposite as well. We can say that this is up 2, so I'm allowed to say that here the slope is positive 2. And then the run, it went to the left 3, 1, 2, 3. So since it went to the left 3, it's negative 3. It doesn't matter which number is negative as long as only one number is negative. A very common mistake is that people will think that they're both negatives. But if they're both negatives, it would become a positive, and then the line would be going up this way instead of going down that way. All right? Now, the last one that we have here, if you guys notice, the y equals 4 is my equation, but there's no x there. So what's the coefficient in front of the x? Well, if there's no x, then the coefficient is 0. So the slope is 0. Hopefully remember that any line that has a slope of 0 will always be horizontal, okay? And then this plus 4, it's technically like this, 0x plus 4, right? That's the same thing as y equals 4 that we have here. So that means that the y-intercept, the starting amount, is 4. So it goes at 4, and then it just goes straight across. Let's see if our prediction is true. It is. All right. So if you guys notice, every equation is always going to be in the form y equals the slope times x plus the y-intercept. Slope times x plus the y-intercept, slope times x plus the y-intercept, slope times x, but I don't write it down because it's 0, plus the y-intercept. Now you all know that the variable for slope is m, so it's always going to be y equals mx, all right? And then the variable for the y-intercept is b, so y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is the y-intercept. Now, here's the thing you guys need to understand. Last year, when you guys did proportional relationships, y equals kx was your equation. Well, m and k are the same thing. The constant of proportionality is basically the same thing as the slope. And then the y-intercept was always 0. It always started at the origin, okay? But y equals mx plus b is your equation that you need to know. The point slope form we'll be talking about at a later point in time, so we'll fill that box in another day. Now, if you guys notice, the equation, the slope-intercept form, has to always be in the format y equals mx plus b, okay? So when I do this right here, it means I just have to isolate the y. Before we do anything at all, I want you guys to rewrite a different equation because I don't want to deal with fractions at this point in time. We will later on, but I don't want to deal with fractions for your y-intercept right now. So instead of 12x minus 20, let's do 12x minus 21. And our goal is to get the y by itself. So in order to get the y by itself, I'm just going to go through and divide each number by 3. So divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. I end up getting y equals 4x minus 7. So how on earth do I graph this out? Well, I'm going to identify what my slope is, and I'm going to identify what my y-intercept is. The slope is 4, and the y-intercept is this b value right here, which is negative 7. But when you write your slope, I want you to always write it as a fraction, so it's really technically 4 over 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph this out. This means that the starting amount, your y-intercept is always going to be your starting amount. Okay, so I want you guys to fill that in because it's key that you know that that's your starting amount. It's also really important to know that for applications of linear equations. So I'm going to start at negative 7, okay, and then the slope is 4 over 1, so that means I'm going to go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1, okay, and then I'm going to put a dot there. That's my next point. I can go up 4, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1, okay. You can keep doing that until you get to the point, or until you get to a point where you have no more points to graph out. And then connect the dots, write your equation on your line, and you have graphed it out. Now, here's something you need to understand. A lot of people will look at this and say, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 points on my line. But you really, on this line, even though it goes on forever, you have infinite points, but even from this point to this point right here, you still have infinite points because every single one of these dots is a point on the line. The thing is, they are not integer coordinates. They can be any type of real number instead. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before I do anything else, I want you to change question number 2 as well. So let's make this negative 2x minus 8y equals negative 24. So the question that I want you to do is all negatives, all right? I'm going to show you 2 different ways to isolate the y in this example. I want you to get both ways down, and then after you've gotten some practice with it, you'll get to a point where you'll be able to choose which one you prefer to do. So for this one, if it's negative 2x minus 8y equals negative 24, I can just get rid of the 2x by adding 2x to both sides, okay? So I end up getting negative 8y equals 2x minus 24. Then I would divide everything by negative 8, and you need to be super careful about this. So you end up getting y equals, now a lot of people will think this is negative 4, but it's not because 2 is not divisible by 8 evenly. So you reduce it so it becomes negative 1/4 x, all right? And then don't forget that this is going to become a positive 3 because negative 24 divided by negative 8 is a positive 3. Okay, that's one method. The other method is to not have to deal with a negative 8y. Since I'm trying to get y by itself, it's going to be a lot easier for me to just make the y positive. So by adding 8y, I now have a positive 8y. So I get negative 2x equals 8y minus 24. Or negative 24 plus 8y. It's your choice. So now I can just add 24 to get the 8y alone, so I end up getting negative 2x plus 24 equals 8y. Divide both sides by 8, you end up getting negative 1/4 x plus 3 equals 8, equals y. Again, it's your choice, but the advantage of doing it this way is that you don't have to deal with a negative y. All right, so that means that my slope is negative 1/4 and that my y-intercept is 3. So if I want to graph this out, all I have to do is figure out what my starting amount is. Well, I know I'm going to start at 3. So I'm going to start at 3. Now remember, when you find your slope, only one number is allowed to be negative if the fraction is a negative number. So I could either have a -1 and a +4, or a +1 and a -4. It's 100% your choice. I'm going to choose to have a -1 and a +4. So I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 4. Okay, now that was one choice, or I could have said I can go do +1 over -4, which means I would go up 1 and to the left 4. Again, it's your choice, whatever you prefer. Connect your dots. You end up getting y equals -1/4 x plus 3 as my equation right here. All right. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the equations of the lines in the following graphs. Well, you need two things to find the equation of the line. You need the slope and you need the y-intercept. So in question A, I'm going to figure out what the m is and I'm going to figure out what the b is. To find the m, I just have to do the rise over the run. So it goes up by how many and over how many? It goes up 3 and to the right 1. So my slope is +3 over +1, which is 3. Or remember, I could have said it went down 3 and to the left 1. So I could say it's -3 over -1, which still ends up giving me a +3, okay? And then the next thing that I need to do is figure out what the y-intercept is. Well, the y-intercept is where it starts on the y-axis. So that's 2. So that means that the equation of my line, since it's y equals mx plus b, would be y equals 3x plus 2. Okay? And then let's look at question B. In question B, I have to find the m and I have to find the b. Well, the m, I got to do the rise over the run again. So to do the rise over the run, it's going to, sorry, I went too far. Let's try this again. It's going to go down 2 and over 3, or you could, nope, just down 2 and over 3, so we'll say -2 over +3, or you could say up 2 and to the left 3, whatever you choose. So I'm going to say it goes down 2 and to the right 3. I can't divide it, I can't reduce it, so my answer is -2/3 for my slope, and then my graph started at 5. Okay, so that means